Hi everyone, I'm the Plant Propagator and welcome to my channel. Today I'm in the Midwest US. It is almost New Year's. It is 36 degrees Fahrenheit outside, not going out there, which is about 2 degrees Celsius. So it's a little bit of a chilly day here, but I'm not growing orchids outside right now here, so I'm good and it's all fine. As we approach the new year, I wanted to think about what direction I want to go with my channel and kind of maybe some changes and some new things that I want to do. Before I do that, I just kind of want to tell you a little bit more about my background, and then the changes that I'm talking about I think will become a little bit more relevant. So I'm born and raised in the Midwest. I've always loved plants and I've always loved gardening. I started out growing, when I was a kid, I started out growing plants inside my house under lights. At that time, this is before the LED days, and at that time I grew plants under fluorescent lights in the basement of my parents' house. And it's interesting, the first plant that I grew that I really loved growing, maybe it's not a surprise when you think back on it, but I grew a florist Gloxinia and Syningia speciosa, and I looked through my images that I have, and I found an old image of Gloxinia that I would grow. And so this is the first plant that I grew. I really loved growing this plant, big showy flowers, and I grew the double flowers when I first started growing Gloxinias as a kid. I actually grew them and they did really well, and again, these really bright big flowers is kind of what attracted me to this area. I should have gone into floriculture maybe, but I didn't. But anyway, we'll get to that later. So I grew, again, these florist Gloxinias, and I would sell them to one of the garden stores in my hometown, and they did pretty well. I sold them. I didn't sell a lot of them because my growing space was so small, but I did grow them, and I started my relationship with plants, I guess, with those florist Gloxinias. Gloxinias are in the Gesneriad family, and there's other members of that family that you may be a little bit more familiar with. African violet is the most famous member of that family, and I used to grow those too. So I grew African violets, I grew Gloxinias, I grew also Streptocarpus. I grew a number of these different plants, and I grew them from cuttings, but also some seeds. So I guess I started into the plant propagation area when I was a kid, and that has continued to this day. I went to undergraduate. I was a botany major. I started out as a zoology major, but I just didn't like it at all. My dad, as you might guess, wanted me to be a doctor, an MD, medical doctor. I didn't like that. I liked plants too much, and so I stayed. I started out as a zoology major, but then after, I think I lasted maybe a year and a half, and then but the basic science classes that you take as a zoology major and a botany major are very similar. You got to take the chemistry and the math and all those types of classes. So after a short amount of time, I shifted to a botany major, and I really loved it. And I eventually found so I took all the botany type classes. I liked, physiology. I didn't like taxonomy as much, which was just a memorization and regurgitation, but I struggled through it and figured it out. I actually really liked plant pathology, and that's what I wanted. I thought I wanted to go into, but it ended up that the laboratory that I was interested in, they didn't want to have me in the laboratory, so I just I hunted around for the right laboratory to take me, and this is as an undergraduate student, and I found a laboratory where they were doing genetics, and I found an advisor who was a graduate student in that laboratory who took me under wing, and I just loved it. We were doing mutagenesis, and my project was mutagenesis of radish, and that was my first paper, was a chloroplast mutation in radish. But then I went on to graduate school. I applied only to a few different graduate schools, and 2 schools, one wouldn't take me, so that left one. I had a good time as an undergrad, and my grades weren't really very good. And so I did get into one graduate school, but it was a good graduate school, and it was a good program. So thanks for taking me into that graduate program. And in graduate school, I still liked plants, and I still played with plants, but I ended up working with my first crop plant, which at the time was cotton. And so I did propagation of cotton, which was a really interesting story. It was a challenging plant to work with. I struggled with it, but then I had some successes with it, and it ended up working out really nicely for me. So the postdoc, after graduate school, I did a postdoc with a company. So I was in the private sector for a short time, and then but I also was working on cotton, and at that time, genetic engineering techniques were coming out. So I did, as a postdoc, genetic engineering of cotton using the propagation approaches, the tissue culture approaches that I did in graduate school, and I was modestly successful with that. And then after that postdoc, I came to the university as a faculty member, as an assistant professor. So I've been in the area of propagation for most of my life. But then I was doing tissue culture and biotechnology for all of my career at the Midwest university that I ended up with. So I ended up spending 35 years at a big Midwest university doing, again, tissue culture and biotechnology. I learned and I developed molecular biology tools and techniques in order to understand plant growth and development from single cells into whole plants. And again, that's the core of biotechnology, is being able to introduce DNA or introduce changes in the native DNA into those single cells and then grow whole plants from those cells. So the basics of biotechnology is in propagation. And so that's how I became, well, I was always a propagator, but that's where I focused on propagation. All right, and then I should mention that in graduate school, I had 2 publications in really good journals. Annals of Botany and Plant Physiology were on various aspects of propagation of African violet. I worked mostly on cotton, but before I did that, I did African violet, even in graduate school. And I just really liked all aspects of propagation. And in the propagation area, as it turns out, you can jump from plant to plant with ease. And especially when working with cells, you can jump, and a lot of the basic concepts are very similar. So I did propagation of African violet, but also propagation of cotton. And again, for most of my career, I did a number of different plants, but I focused on soybeans because soybeans paid the bills. My laboratory got really big because of the investment in the projects that were ongoing in my laboratory in soybean. Okay, so how does this relate to anything? So I wanted to get back to, and now I'm working on mostly orchids, but my background is in propagation. So what I want to do is bring back some classical propagation approaches, and I also want to focus in on some plants there where my background and where my interests lie. When I was on the faculty in the Midwest University, at home I did some propagation of these same types of plants in the African violet or Gesneriad family. So I did some for hobby at home. I did some propagation of Gloxinia, and I actually took some of the Gloxinia. They form tubers, and I took some of the tubers down to Florida, Southwest Florida, and they grew they didn't grow well. They don't like the high temperature, but they did well, and I got plants to flower and the beautiful flowers, and they did fine. But what I also did, and what I like doing, is I did propagation of Streptocarpus, which is another member of the African violet family. And I bring up Streptocarpus because I grew them from seed underneath my shelves. So this first image shows my Streptocarpus seedlings growing underneath my shelves, and they get bigger, and then they get bigger, and then the flowers of them are shown here. And then some of the interesting things about Streptocarpus is some of the flowers, or some of the leaves, you can get variegation. Well, you can get variegation on a lot of different plants. African violet is known for variegation, and that's actually where some of my papers were, is in the area of variegation in African violet. And anyway, back to the Streptocarpus. Streptocarpus is very easy to cross, very easy to generate these seed capsules, as shown here at the top of this image, and it's a long spindly thing, and there's lots of seeds that are in there. Now, what I did here in the Midwest is I harvested the seeds and I kept them. So I have right here some leftover seeds that I've been storing in the refrigerator of these Streptocarpus. And I just was thinking to myself here, I'm going to bring these back to Southwest Florida, and I'm going to try some seed propagation of Streptocarpus. I'm going to buy some African violets and try leaf propagation of it's so easy to do, and I want to share that with you. So I want to do some classical propagation from other plants, I'll keep orchids in there, but I want to do some other propagation exercises. And so I want to do some seeds of Streptocarpus, African violet. There's other plants that are just all over the place, and I've done some of these, but it's fun to do. It's called getting lots of plants for free, is what it's called. So and I'm thrifty, so I want to do some of this with you. So I just want to give you a little bit of background so you know where I'm coming from, and hopefully you can see how much I enjoy doing classical propagation. And the plant doesn't matter. I just happen to love the big flowers, but it doesn't matter. If there's a plant that you want to see propagated, put it in the comment box. If there's an approach that you want to see, let me know, and I'd be happy to look into it for you, and I'd be happy to put a video together for you. Now, it may take, in certain cases, it may take a month to see the results of propagation, so they're not going to be coming out my videos aren't going to be coming out very quickly, but I'm happy to try a new propagation method as long as I can get a original plant, and then I can show you how to propagate those plants. Again, very similar techniques. I can explain the science behind why the propagation works. I can explain a little bit behind the genetics and what kind of flower colors and seeds and whatever else we're going to get from the different plants that we try the crosses on. And I can, again, explain all this to you, hopefully in a simple enough way so that it will become clear. So let me know what you want to see as far as any new propagation type videos that I can share with you, because I'm the plant propagator, and to be honest, I love doing propagation of all different plants. I don't have space for them, so I may do some propagation and then give those plants away to friends and neighbors, but that's what I do now anyway. So let's see how that goes. And again, the plants that I have, like the Streptocarpus, they'll do okay in Florida, but I don't think they'd like the hot temperature, so I can make some of those and keep them for a little while and have them flower, but I'm not really sure how long they'll last there. But it's so easy to do propagation, and you don't really need that much space to do it, so I'm happy to try some things for you. The other thing that if you stuck with me this long, the other thing that I'm really excited about is I don't know if it'll be my next video or the one after. So I'm here in the Midwest, and as shocking as it sounds, one of the largest, it might be the largest Phalaenopsis grower in the United States is an hour from my house here. So I have an appointment to see them next week, and this is a huge Phalaenopsis grower. I mean, I think they have 35 acres under glass just for the Phalaenopsis. They have, I think, over 100 acres with other plants, but they have 35 acres of just phals. And they've agreed to see me. Yay! And so I'm going to go there. This is some videos showing, I think some drone footage showing the outlay of their facility, and you can see how extensive some of their greenhouses are. But they have it's interesting because they have some automated machine vision care of their Phalaenopsis orchids, and I hope I can see that. They may show me their flasking room. I don't know what they're going to share with me, but I'm just really excited to be able to go visit Green Circle Growers next week. And like I said, I'm not sure what they're just out in the middle of nowhere, but you know, it's an incredible facility that I've seen some videos that they've put out on YouTube. But I really am anxious to see their facilities, and hopefully they'll let me shoot videos. I've asked permission and they haven't responded, so let's see how that goes. All right, so I'm all excited about the change and the new year and everything coming up. I hope you are too. Let me know if you have some ideas of videos that you want to see. That's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did and you want to keep on seeing them, it would help me out if you can click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. All right. Again, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and happy propagating.